She never wanted attention. Mira was the kind of girl who faded into the background, not because she lacked beauty or brains, but because the world had never given her a reason to step forward. She walked the school halls like a ghost, clutching her books tightly to her chest, eyes cast downward, always trying to stay invisible. But in today's world, even the quiet ones aren't safe from cruelty. Especially when cruelty craves an audience. And one day, they made her the star of a nightmare. It was a normal Wednesday, right after lunch. Mira had taken her usual corner table in the library, a place where no one bothered her. But someone had other plans. Jana, Trish, and Zoe, 3 girls from the popular crowd, strutted in with their phones already recording. Livestream on. Comments flooding in. "Hey guys," Jana said to the camera, laughing. "Wanna see a makeover?" Mira looked up. Too late. In seconds, they were around her. Zoe yanked her bag away. Trish pulled out her chair. Jana, still holding her phone, reached for Mira's shirt collar and, with a loud rip, tore it down the front seam. Laughter. Screams. And the worst part, the sound of hearts reacting through a phone screen. More than 120 people were watching live. Mira froze. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was burning. Burning with shame. With disbelief. With a rage so deep it stole her breath before it found her fists. And then, she stood up. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Jana turned back to her, still laughing, and that's when Mira's fist landed. Hard. Right on the bridge of her nose. The phone dropped. The screen flipped. The angle showed Jana stumbling backward, nose bleeding, the laughter instantly gone. Gasps in the comment section exploded. Viewers weren't laughing anymore. Trish tried to grab Mira, bad idea. Mira spun, ducked low, and sent an elbow into her ribs. Zoe backed away, panic flooding her eyes. She wasn't expecting the shy girl to fight back. No one was. Especially not like this. A teacher rushed in moments later. Phones were still rolling. The video had already gone viral within the school, and within minutes, across the internet. But what started as an attempt to humiliate Mira, turned into something far more powerful. The principal suspended all 3 girls immediately. Their video was used as evidence. Parents were called. The media took notice. And as for Mira, she wasn't punished. Because for once, everyone saw the whole story. But behind the scenes, Mira still struggled. The weeks that followed were tough. Online attention was overwhelming. Some people praised her strength. Others blamed her for the violence. She received messages from strangers, some kind, some cruel. She was offered interviews, podcast invites, even modeling gigs. But she turned them all down. Because this wasn't about fame. This was about healing. At home, her parents were shocked by what had happened, not just the bullying, but the strength their daughter had hidden for so long. Her father held her hands and said, "You didn't deserve any of that. But I'm proud you stood up. Proud you stood your ground." Her mother cried and told her, "No one should ever make you feel small. Ever again." And Mira, for the first time in her life, believed them. Back at school, things had changed. The same kids who used to ignore her now looked at her with respect. A few girls even came forward to admit they'd been bullied by Jana's group too. Mira, still quiet, now found herself being listened to when she spoke. She was invited to join the school's peer support program. At first, she hesitated, she didn't see herself as a leader. But a counselor reminded her, sometimes, the best leaders are the ones who felt the deepest pain. So she joined. And slowly, day by day, she began helping others find their voice. Just like she had found hers. Months passed. The viral video had faded from headlines, but Mira's story didn't. Because her story wasn't just about one punch. It was about what that punch stood for. It stood for every quiet student who had been mocked for being too soft. It stood for every person whose body had been touched without permission. It stood for those who had suffered in silence, and finally broke that silence with strength. On the last day of school, the principal invited Mira to speak at the senior assembly. She stood at the podium, holding a microphone, her voice still calm, but no longer timid. I didn't want to fight, she began. I didn't want to hurt anyone. But I was pushed. Humiliated. And live-streamed for entertainment. But what they didn't know is that I'd had enough. Enough of being silent. Enough of being afraid. And if anyone else here has ever felt that way, you don't have to throw a punch to be strong. You just have to know your worth. And refuse to let anyone take it from you. The entire room stood and clapped. Even teachers wiped their eyes. Final message. This isn't just a story of a girl who punched back. It's about the moment a shy girl decided she would no longer be someone else's joke. It's about reclaiming power, not through revenge, but through self-respect. To every person watching this, your voice matters. Your boundaries matter. And you never need to be silent when someone crosses them. Because sometimes, the strongest punch isn't thrown with your hand. It's thrown when you finally stand up and say, enough. After the assembly, students slowly filed out, but Mira stayed behind. She stood alone in that large auditorium, staring at the rows of empty chairs. Not long ago, she would have given anything to disappear in those seats, to be unseen, unnoticed. But now, she understood. Her story wasn't just about what happened to her, it was about how she chose to rise from it. The teacher who had helped stop the bullying that day came to stand beside her. You did something powerful today, he said. I was scared, Mira admitted. He nodded. Courage isn't about never being scared. It's about what you do when you are. The days that followed were filled with new challenges. One morning, Mira found a printed photo of herself taped to her locker, edited with mocking text, Queen of Violence. The same group of students who had once followed Jana still held on to bitterness. But Mira didn't tear it down. She stood there for a moment, and then placed a second note below it, in her own handwriting. Queen of Boundaries. And I won't apologize for them. She walked away, leaving the paper there like a flag planted in solid ground. Outside school, the online attention hadn't disappeared either. Clips of her punch were reposted again and again, but now, many edits showed the before, too. The live stream. The bullying. The humiliation. Public opinion shifted. People began discussing why Mira reacted the way she did. Conversations popped up in forums, podcasts, and student blogs. Not just about school bullying, but about consent, public shaming, and how far is too far. Some called her a hero. Others called her violent. But Mira stayed grounded. She didn't feed the noise. She kept attending school. She kept listening. She kept showing up, and that was louder than any opinion. Her counselor offered to nominate her for a local Youth Courage Award. At first, Mira hesitated. I'm not a hero, she said. I just got pushed too far. But the counselor replied gently, a hero isn't someone who wants attention. It's someone who acts when they're terrified, and still chooses what's right. So she accepted. On the day of the award ceremony, Mira stood in front of an audience again, not classmates this time, but educators, parents, students from other schools. She wore a modest blazer, hair tied back, hands steady as she took the mic. And her speech shook the room. I'm not here to talk about my punch. I'm here to talk about the moment I realized I didn't deserve what they did to me. No one deserves to be mocked for being quiet. No one deserves to have their body violated. And no one should be turned into entertainment. I stood up for myself, yes. But what I truly want is a world where no one has to get pushed that far. So if you're watching this, and you've been humiliated, hurt, or silenced, know this. You are not weak. You are not alone. And you never, ever deserve it. Your worth doesn't come from likes, shares, or people's opinions. Your worth is yours. And you have every right to protect it. Tears streamed down faces across the room. Some teachers clapped slowly. Some students wiped their eyes. Others just sat frozen, stunned by the power of her voice, not loud, but unshakable. She didn't need to scream to be heard. She only needed to speak her truth. In the months that followed, Mira helped launch a digital awareness campaign with her school's support. It was called #MyLine, encouraging students to post videos and messages about where they draw the line, in relationships, in school, in social media. The campaign exploded. Other schools joined in. More stories came forward. Students who had suffered quietly began to speak, not with fists, but with truth, art, voice, and action. 1 year later, Mira stood in front of a new batch of students on orientation day. Her counselor had asked her to give them a few words of advice as they entered high school. She stood before the mic, looked around at their young, nervous faces, and smiled. "You don't need to be loud to be strong," she said. "But never, ever let anyone take your silence for weakness. Because if they cross your line, you have every right to defend your space. With your voice. With your truth. And if needed, with your fire." The room went quiet. And then the claps came. One by one, louder and louder. Final message. This story is not about one punch. It's not about violence. It's about knowing your worth in a world that often tries to steal it. Mira didn't become famous because she hit back. She became a symbol because she knew when to stop hiding. So to anyone watching this, whether you're shy, quiet, introverted, anxious, you are not invisible. You are not small. And you are never the problem. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your body, your voice, your peace. And when you finally choose to rise, you won't just change your life. You'll change the world around you.